Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's Wonder webinar, where we will be talking about orchestration, orchestrating agents, and operationalizing AI. I'll be joined in a little bit by Stefan, who represents the CFO side of the house. He's a very knowledgeable CFO, has made it his business to understand AI, understand how it can be monetized, understand how to work with stakeholders to push it across the enterprise. And he'll be sharing with us some of the insights of how we think about this next wave, including agents in the enterprise. I'm also going to be joined by Pranav, our very own, who is a maestro in and of himself. He's been working very heavily with some of the new tools that are literal orchestration agents, orchestrating tools that are pulling together APIs and applications that organizations have had sprawled across their enterprises for a long time. So with the advent of agents, we now have new organizations being built in the dawn of agents, and we also have this concept of modernization that's taking place in several enterprises. And as these come together, we are seeing a new wave of technical and business having to come together to ensure that the alignment between the two is always done. Now, with all our webinars, we always ensure that we are talking to you guys about what we're seeing, not only in the field, but what's being talked about in the market. And I think it's important to see that unlike many of the technological developments that have come in the past, AI isn't just a tool. It's a concept, it's a way of being. And as Satya here said, a strategic enabler for organizational change. And I believe that to be true. I think we finally are on the precipice of what digital transformation truly can do. And the speed and acceleration in which AI can take us gives us the reason to kind of pause and think about how these come together in the new era of work. So we're now seeing this concept, and we have for the past 10 to 12 years, many enterprises adopting humans and bots. We've seen the advent of RPA. We've seen it get added, with stitching together with document understanding, different digital readers, applications that are able to extract not only characters, now they can read with natural language processing. And so the evolution of bots in the enterprise has been something that we've adopted and adapted to really seamlessly. Most operators, most finance, folks, or, operations folks, or people that are in the business don't even know that bots might be underlying doing some of the applications and some of the preparatory work before they execute their jobs every day. But now what we have is AI agents. This has agency, thought, the ability to discern, to make a decision. And so now when we're operating not only with bots that are programmed, wired, if you will, to perform a behavior over and over again and then step out for exceptions, we have AI agents that can make discernments about exceptions, that can maybe make new patterns and sometimes even suggest new ways of operations. And so when we're bringing in these different thoughts, the human element, the bots that have been programmed by the human, and the AI agents that, with all due respect, have been trained by humans for the most part, when we're pulling all of this together, it's important to really stop and think and make sure that we're avoiding all pitfalls. There's a lot of risk aversion out there, and Stefan's going to talk a little bit about how that's been overcome in organizations and some of the talk tracks that really get us past the idea of, ooh, this is scary, in keeping with our Halloween theme. But it's really more about understanding that you can overcome those obstacles if you really have an understanding of alignment. Now, what do we want to avoid? We want to make sure that we stick to our strategic origin. Now, the concept of execution drift means that what we set out to do wasn't quite where we landed, right? Often we see that, budget is strayed from. So when it's time to ask for more money, or it's time to renew licenses that can maybe support these intelligent automation programs, or perhaps the large language models that need to be either rented, borrowed, used, data sets that maybe need to be procured, teams that need to be, either, used either with outsourcing or having a partner on the side or having internal resources hired and managed. It's an entire thought process that could stray from budget if it isn't thought through at the beginning. And it could be any level, any portion of the program that can really stop you dead in your tracks. The other thing is straying from execution, not having the prioritization of what's really going to be valued at the organization. It's not just enough to say, ooh, this is shiny and can be done. Does it have value? Does it matter to somebody? And then, of course, as with any technical project, as with any project that's supposed to deliver returns, if we stray from the anticipated ROI, those are the unseen risks of not really having a disciplinary action in place or a strategic oversight, an umbrella of an AI programmatic approach. So we see that we need a new discipline. What does that look like? Is that policy? Yes. Does that mean that our legal teams have to be looking at contracts? How does an AI agent potentially affect or impact the way that we work with our vendors? Could there be any downstream impact to our clients with the way that some of these, data sets are being procured, obtained, thought through, discerned, decided, and put to place, right? Because once they learn, the idea is that we continue to kind of replicate that behavior. And so it's important more than ever to really stop and think, we need to understand what needs to be managed. And it's not the same to manage humans as it is agents and bots. And it certainly isn't the same to manage an entire enterprise that has all working together. So it's important to have on-time, real-time information. No longer is it okay to look back on last month's performance. We have to see the indicators up front so that we can make tweaks and adjustments along the way. That's the difference between how we're doing, any kind of life cycle development, or augmentation with AI, is really having to see it in practice, real time. Being able to see the tools in one kind of place, and we'll be getting to orchestration shortly too, but really having the ability to govern all the different players, all the different applications and technologies in the same place. And then understanding that in the past, and maybe how some organizations have originally built their automation programs, there could be some fragmentation. There could even be multiple RPA tools, for example, in one organization. There could be multiple, foundations and groundworks for what kind of AI tools they're going to be. There could be something procured in finance that maybe operations could use and they didn't even know that they had it. And so there's all these decisions that have been made with this rush to deploy digital transformation that now we're kind of at this point that says, before we accelerate too much with AI, but still keeping up, what is it that we're going to do and how is it that we should do it? So there's two camps. There's always been two schools of thought when it comes to adoption. And it's really the ones that are the renegades, the early, adopters, are the wait and see folks, right? And so the wait and see folks are the ones that, I'm not sure if my organization is ready to kind of make all these changes. I don't know if we're ready to hire all these people. I don't know if we have the talent in-house, the expertise to understand what it is that we need to procure, what's going to be the best fit for our organization. And so maybe we'll see what other people are doing and kind of, sniff it out, attend a few conferences, listen to a few vendor pitches, and see kind of what the fuss is all about. There are a lot of hype cycles. It did behoove some folks along the way to stick it out on some of the technologies we saw along the way. I don't think AI is that case, though. The other thing is be early. Now, competition in organizations is fierce. Margin is shrinking in supply chains, so retail and manufacturing is getting hit hard with some of these constraints. And AI is a really easy way, or not an easy way from the concept of deployment, but it is the accurate way to get to the answers and to get your organization, the data accurate once and for all. And so if you're early to the game, it can drive immediate costs, but there is thought to be put into it. So if you're early, it's really deciding how it's going to change, that you want to be the forefront of that you don't want to be left behind by your competition, that you want to make sure that your customers are having the best experience possible, with the advent of new agents, and that you are ready for the game. So in either decision, whether you're going to be the early adopter, or the person that kind of pauses and reflects, and kind of watches what everybody else does, it's important to make sure that there's a strategic decision. Either way, every single organization, whether you're ready to launch or invest today or not, it's time to talk about what the organization thinks about AI, because it is here. This is something that needs to be decided. It is something that needs to be mandated, both from the top down and understood from the bottom up. Introducing the APM stack. So we'll send you guys the white paper afterwards. But these are the three main concepts that come from what we've called Agentic Process Management. And this is the discipline that we are recommending to our clients as they're beginning to add layers of technology and components of AI to their existing automation programs. A lot of folks are doing what we're calling now agentifying their existing automations, adding agents to the mix for parts that used to have to be human in the loop, or parts that maybe didn't have a decision point, that could be readily accessed. And so the Agentic Process Management, APM stack, gives us this way kind of a blueprint, a guideline for how it is that we need to pull this all together. Now, first and foremost, it's orchestration. That can't be missed. It's so important to ensure that the agentic workflows, that there's integration, that there's an understanding that all these technologies can be pulled together and they can be managed together and they can be actioned together. Very important component of this. And it's the only way to get true ROI, to have a real landscape of every single application that's being operated in the organization. Fidelity is this concept of ensuring that what we say we're going to do is what we actually do. It's the marriage contract between the actions and what it is that we're going to do. The actions that we're going to take and what it is that we're saying that we're going to get out of this transformation program as we set out to conquer that. And then stewardship is the concept of not just leadership, not just sponsorship, but truly taking accountability for what it is that has to be done, the outcomes. We talk a little bit about an intent dashboard. And again, that's the real-time focus. Are we making sure that what we intended to do is really where we're actually landing as far as performance, production, and output? So what we always recommend is a phased approach. And this is something I know Stefan talked about the last time he was on our podcast, actually, Bits About Bots. He talked about the phased approach as well. It's really important to kind of do it across departments, smaller, understanding what it is, build the expertise, and then build on readiness, right? So once people start saying, yeah, okay, I can see how that could help, then that's where you start to double down and invest in the ability for folks to be part of it, to either give you the sourcing of the options that potentially you could automate or look to add AI, and then ultimately really give them the empowerment to give you those ideas and get that groundswell, because adoption is really what's going to set the momentum for these initiatives getting across the line. Now, what C-level leaders need to know, whoever the audience is, either on the recap of this or who's with us today, it's important, whether we're C-level or not, to know what it is that they need to know, because it's incumbent on us to make sure that we have those answers. And as you're evaluating AI and partners and vendors, it's important to make sure that you understand what it is that they need to understand so they can make the best decision for your organization. So one of the main things is just you need to have clarity on what's going on. There's often at least some footprint of automation, either through an SAP add-on or, RPA or a Power Automate addition to a Microsoft, enterprise. So there's several different areas where automation is probably already happening. It's important to pause and say, where is that, and have a handle on what's happening. Now, the other thing is that they're already making operational decisions, these AI agents and bots, right? So we need to make sure that there's oversight and at least a high-level understanding of what those decisions could imply, what they could implicate, and what the escalation path is for them, right? So each C-level leader in every business unit should task themselves with understanding how this works. Metrics, back to SLAs. I think we pulled away from that a lot. There was a lot of discipline, I think, during the pandemic when everybody was moving remote, but really understanding what those handoffs have to be, tighten up the onshore, offshore, tighten up the partnership, tighten up, the way the processes are being done within the organization, seeing if we can really tighten up the belt on the SLA, improved all the way because of automation or moving something quicker, more accurately. So really understanding what the pulse of these changes are. And then the other thing is making sure that you understand your teams are already doing this. I betcha your marketing folks are using ChatGPT to see, if they can come up with some creative copy or check on what their social post was going to be for the organization. The developers sure as hell are asking for checks and rechecks on some of their code. And what is this looking like? So different parts of your organization are already using AI in their everyday lives. This is already woven into the fabric of how everybody operates. And so it's already happening. It's just about how you're going to step in and be part of it. So one of the things that we wanted to give you guys a chance to do as well, before I pull up the panelists and we can start spotlighting them now, Ria, if you want. But two of these areas that really we're seeing across the board that are really, kind of adopting and taking this on is, invoice processing. So invoice processing agents, it's that last mile that was never fully captured. The last like 15% that the CFO kept saying, well, why can't we automate that all the way? Well, agents have now made us, cut that gap. And then, of course, software development. That's another area that's really been giving rise. So with that, and as with always, we'll be sending along the PowerPoint with everybody too. I'd like to invite Stefan and Pranav to join me.
Hello, Paula. Thank you. I'm excited to be on your meetings this morning.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. Thanks so much, Stefan. I know you've done a podcast live, so here we go. And Pranav, hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
It is on mine, Paula. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. So I think one of the biggest components of everything that's changed, and all of the different technologies that we've seen, as we look to adopt agents, I want to start just by talking about the education in general, right? I threw a lot of things out here that for the nascent person, they're like, wait a minute, what? And I often stop and remind myself that we're getting flooded with this 24/7, but we live, breathe, and do AI every single day. But the average person may not know that these are the stats of what's actually being penetrated, in an organization. And then, oh my gosh, how do I catch up with the learning, right? So both of you have a very beautiful, unique perspective as far as AI education goes. So I'm going to start there because I think that's a really important place to start as we throw all these concepts out at everybody. So Pranav, in your role, you are constantly being tasked with being able to know the latest technology, demo the last thing, show up to Paula's webinar because she asked you to, so you get tasked with all these things that have to do with you being an expert in your field. So how do you keep up with it? How do you train? How do you practice? What do you read? Tell us a little bit about how you keep yourself educated in such a fast-paced environment.
Definitely, Paula, the way technology is moving, we need to be definitely in that pace. It should not be like in a 1 year, we should upskill ourselves. It's now what I generally do. Basically, I leads community chapters. I being part of community. So I can't read everything. I can't experiment everything. So be part of a community where different enablements are going on, different people sharing their expertise that they have done recently. So those things I learned it very quickly, experiment myself. That gives me an upper edge compared to other people. It's not like you started getting a book, read a novel, nothing like that. Those are outdated. I feel it. You have YouTube channels that gives you an instant new technologies that are coming. Be part of those notifications that something has been added into my channel, and I am the first person to watch those things. So those are things that I generally do.
That's fantastic. And I think that's a perfect segue to Stefan, what we talked about the other day, when we were connecting on some of the initiatives you're doing. It's how, regardless of what the diploma is that these kids are graduating with, that there is a big gap between the understanding and the education of AI in school life versus real life. So tell us a little bit about the initiatives that you're doing to bridge those gaps, because I think that's a very important part of kind of orchestrating our work environment.
Sure. I mean, we have different audiences. So what is constant is change. We will always have change, weekly, daily, hourly. To stay on top of that is a challenge for us, but as Pranav mentioned, you go to conferences, you learn by yourself, you take classes, you talk with colleagues. For me, it's always important that I'm not the smartest in the room, because if I'm the smartest, I'm in the wrong room. So if you look at the audience, I mean, my first audience is our employees. They know their business, they don't know AI. So there we have to start with an AI literacy journey to bring the AI basics to them. The more they understand AI, the less they're afraid of it. what Paula touched on, it's actually scary. According to a study, 90% of employees use AI tools today. 40% of corporations have their own corporate language model. And 10% of corporations have only an AI policy governance. If you don't provide your own corporate language model, what do employees upload to the public? If you don't govern it and regulate it, how do you know what they actually do? The topic is universities, students. I spent quite some time at universities. I'm impressed with their AI technology knowledge. That's amazing. The tools they use, the way they think, but they need to understand the business. They need to learn the business. And as corporations, we have the obligation to direct the universities what we need in 5 years. If you look at COVID, we needed IT people. Everybody started studying IT. Now they finished their university and there's a high degree of unemployment because we don't need IT people anymore. So we need to align with universities and we need to support them and direct them. In Texas, there's a great initiative by Dallas College, North Texas Alliance, Sectorship Alliance Partnership, where we try to bring corporations, universities, and public together to talk about the future. I'm also personally involved with UTD because we need to support, we need to mentor these people, we need to guide these people. I was at the AI Day at UTD this week, I was at the hackathon, very individuals, but we need to expose them and bring them into the business to give them the experience.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think that's that in general, having context to why you're doing something, allows you to understand so much more. In my team, I always make sure, marketing, whether you're video editing, graphic design, whatever component of it, you have to understand what the ultimate thing is that we're trying to sell or that we're trying to, help our clients with, or, so that you understand what your piece of the puzzle ultimately, applies to.
Right.
So I want to touch on this concept of orchestration, because I think, in general, thematically, what we're saying is that we need to make sure that employers and professors, are on the same page of what we're ultimately looking for when these guys graduate. Absolutely. And so woven in that thread, then, even internally in organizations, we need to get a clue, and those stats are staggering of how little alignment there is on what the hell we're going to do with AI, right? And then meanwhile, we're also very excited, the nerds of us that are in this space, because finally we're talking about orchestration of all these fragmented components. So at the precipice of something that's actually going to pull it all together to where everybody can kind of understand it, we also have this big lack of alignment, and the groundwork hasn't been placed, even though we've had all this time to do it, right? And so we're kind of in this funny place. So Pranav, I want you to talk a little bit about, I know you've evaluated several of the tools, but let's talk about the technology itself. Let's talk about the shiny toy, and then Stefan, I'll go to you and we'll talk about the value of the shiny toy. But tell us a little bit about some of the problems that we've had in the past of like applications not communicating to each other, not having one kind of central operating place where an organization can kind of understand, like the command room, so to speak, to know what is going on with all the different, tools and spaghetti trails of code and technology that are all over the organization. So tell us a little bit about how that's caused challenges, and what are you excited about with some of the stuff that you've been playing with and that you've been, piloting in client sites. What do you think some of these orchestration tools are going to do? Are you excited about it? Is it going to fix some of the problems of the past, or do we have a way to go still?
Definitely, Paula. So earlier, before the era of agentic, we were using process mining to have the visibility of which tool, which team are working in silos, what they are doing. So from there, we are getting to know that, okay, this team is having an issue with an automation, let's do it. So those things we are using specific tools. But now with the advancement of, I would say, working with the latest technologies like you have at Maestro, it gives us an opportunity to connect everything. a human, robots, then again agents, again any systems, APIs, databases, you name it, and you have that your robot is working. Is it getting stuck here? Your agent, is it giving the output that you are expecting? So that visibility is there using the latest orchestration tools like UiPath Mesh Pro. And I'm not just promoting UiPath here, but the best part of the tool that is giving us, there are other tools, open sources like LangGraph is also there, which does it. There are other platforms as well. I don't want to name those, but every orchestration tool giving you the solution of the earlier problem, that complete visibility. And this is what I really the process orchestration.
Yeah, and visibility, but without as much of the invasion that was required for process mining, right? That was, while it was great visibility, and for a process improvement nerd like myself, it was great to see. It was really, really difficult and cumbersome to get that information initially too. So hopefully it was as valuable as the work that it put in, right? Now what we're saying is that this can actually all kind of tie together, independent of the type of tool, technology, or even human that we're talking about here. This is true command center visibility. So Stefan, with this visibility, who do you see as kind of the owner and the leader of this? It's no longer about just bespoke processes or automated invoice processing. If we're zooming out and we have the ability to kind of champion, support, budget for, and review, this high level, tool in an organization, how do we think about that? Who should be in charge of that? How do you think we should think about that?
It's a good question. I mean, in my opinion, finance needs to drive that, because the tool provides all data, all transparency, but we need to translate it into a story. We have to explain, what does it mean? What should we do based on the KPI, based on our industry, based on what we see in the market? And that's the future for finance, in my opinion, because the pure finance from the past is history. When we will see 60-70% replacement of our tasks with automation. We don't need people for AP anymore, for AR, for creating numbers. Everything comes on a dashboard. So we need to translate that and bring that to the management team, to the organization. What does it mean for us?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And then maybe if the technical component, we've always, finance and IT have always kind of had this love affair, of trying to test tools and then, IT making it work, or adjusting it or tweaking it or tinkering, right? And so as we're kind of approaching this, it makes sense for finance to drive the initiative, especially since this flies in the face of HR, right? Because this potentially changes the workforce and everything we do and know about it, right? And then it also potentially changes just the work and or tools that we potentially have, and ultimately who signs off on that is finance. So that makes a lot of sense.
It's an interesting study here, by the way. Gartner analyzed that we should use AI 60% to drive top line, 30% to cut cost, and 10% to disrupt the market. If you talk about agents in general, in reality, corporations in the US use it right now 80-90% for use cases to cut cost. So we are missing out on the top line, and we are missing out on the disruption of the market.
Yeah.
And we need to shift to that.
Yeah, shift to where that should be. But I think, again, if there wasn't a way, as organizations got complex with all these tools, to really see everything that's actually happening, not just hearsay by an employee saying, this is how I do my job every day. Right. It's only natural that it became convoluted to be able to unstring. And the only way to get a true data set that's AI-able, and operational for AI is really being able to unstring all those pieces that we tried to club together. It's kind of like merging cells in Excel. It's like they belong together at one point, but then you have to unmerge, and it's a nightmare to figure out, what didn't belong together, right? And so that's where we're at, and just really kind of these extraction tools in the place. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about too, in this concept of orchestration, with kind of that being the focus here, it's not just about technology, orchestrating the technology, it's orchestrating the mindsets, and the people behind, what's actually happening here. So Stefan, as a leader, and then Pranav, you as a leader, in your respective space, I want to ask you both, how is it that you've promoted that? How is it that you encourage that along the way? So Stefan, I'll start with you.
I mean, in the end, that's the biggest reskilling since we launched computers, because jobs will change, requirements will change. The value of knowledge will go towards zero. I can find everything online. So where do I add value? Orchestrating the systems, understand the interfaces, the human touch, empathy, talent management, everything AI cannot do today.
Yes.
And for that, I have to take the people along. I mean, yes, we have to train our people, and training doesn't mean to say, go to LinkedIn, take some classes. I have to be specific. What do you know today? What is the gap? What do we have to do? Because otherwise people get lost. I mean, what class should I take? Why should I take it? You also have to talk about the future and how they can be prepared for it. Talking about universities, they need practical experience. I mean, in the end, companies want experience. You have to gain that somehow. Talking about existing employees, you have to take away the concern with AI. You have to lead them to AI step by step. So I think there's a lot of hand-holding, a lot of education, lots of guiding, mentoring required to manage that change in the requirements.
Yes, no, absolutely. And Pranav, in the community, events that you participate in and some of those things that you drive, tell me a little bit about kind of how that comes together and how you continue to drive, the spirit of education there.
Definitely. See, in almost any of our communities, the first thing that we come with a mindset that Stefan explained that no one knows everything. So you have to come with that mindset that I don't know, and I am here to learn, and I am here to take a guidance with a person who knows it about it. So, and this is where you start, and now with the different LLMs like Chat GPT, you have that ability to brainstorm the ideas and then come out to me, okay, stating that, okay, I know this about how can I go forward? Can you please help me out? And this is where in any community, any ideas that we come in the round table is like this. And I strongly believe that you start putting your efforts, even small efforts, and then literally if you start practicing, the bigger ideas will come into picture. But start
I mean,
doing
you
it.
have to stay curious.
Yeah,
I was at a panel this week and listening, and I was on my phone Googling every second word they said. What did they mean? I have not heard that. Oh, what is behind that one? And this curiosity you have to keep.
Absolutely. And I think too, not only with the spirit of curiosity, but when you begin to teach, and you guys are both in the spirit of teaching, in community, in your case, and Stefan with the mentorship that you do, when you start teaching, you recognize how much you don't know, right? Because you're like, I can regurgitate all the things that I told you, but wait, actually that made me think of this, and how does that apply there, and what's going to happen when this bubble bursts, and then the questions that you get from the people that you're bringing along, really start helping drive your knowledge or your curiosity, or kind of directionally where to go, because it is endless, the amount of information that you can get and receive. So back to some of the tooling, because I know there was several questions about some of the different players in AI, and almost every other day I get a request from a new AI organization on LinkedIn to follow their newsletter. So it's alive and well. Everybody's an AI company. How do we sort through the noise, right? So how is it that we drill into preferred vendors, to preferred partners, to get the right expertise? Because again, we can't expect everybody to know everything right now. The best way to get started is to ask somebody who's been there, done that, and do it the way that they did. They've already done this, ask the question, go to the partner. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys have done that. But Pranav, in your respects, you deliver that to our clients. And then Stefan, how is it that you pick the dream team to make sure that you have all your gaps covered? So let's start with you, Stefan, on that.
Yeah, I mean, there are different avenues. If we want to create something by ourselves, I go with personal recommendations from colleagues. I go with relationships because I cannot judge from a website how good a company is, and most of the companies I don't know. But I have enough colleagues here in Dallas who tell me they have used that one that went well or that didn't go so well, I use it. If I look at established players, I mean, I don't need to develop everything by myself. If I want to have an AP automation, there are many good companies out there. I would do a beauty contest and select the best one. Because then they present to me, they explain their advantage, I can ask the questions, and we can compare. In the end, the challenge here is actually the interface with existing systems. I mean, every solution works in itself. How does it interact with my system? In the past, our SAP system was 28 years old, a dinosaur nobody wanted to touch. So do you load the data? Do you extract the data? What data do you take out? How do you get it back in? How often do you do that? And these are actually the real questions because that can make or break your project. But yeah, I would go with recommendations or with established players. I can't hear you, Paula.
And what about you, Pranav? Thanks, Stefan.
So as Stefan rightly mentioned about relationship, so this is not my area. So my area is to evaluate that the problem statement that we have, and we have few tools that has come to us. Is the tool right use cases to do it? For example, we do have multiple tools. What is the USP of this? Is it the right? Is it because of the brand are we using this, or is it rightly solving our problem? Is it improving the cost? Is it had that community? Is it had the resources available? So I think from that perspective as well, it's not like everyone is reaching out to me and I will implement. No, I just see the USP, why I use it, whether I need your support or not. If I already have some players who is ready to pitch in and able to solve my, then happy to use the existing solution instead of bringing someone else.
I mean,
No,
what
absolutely.
I see often is I get a lot of LinkedIn offers, and most companies people pitch a technology. They don't explain how they address a business issue or solution for me. And in the end, I need to know what do I need, what do I want to solve, and how can I accomplish it the best way.
Yes. And if, by the way, I don't know every LLM, RPA, IOP, acronym that exists, then I should still be able to understand that you can give me an answer to my problem, right?
Yeah.
And so Pranav, you've been hands-on keyboard. WonderBotz, we partner with a lot of different technologies, to solve a number of different problems. But as we kind of look through, the different elements and what makes sense and what doesn't, one of the things and one of the reasons why you're, one of our leaders is because you also take the time to understand what the actual problem is that you're solving, right? The process, understanding it. And so that's the other component in any technology initiative, is making sure that the person that is going to ultimately design and help and put something in place understands the potential pitfalls, as if they were to live that entire process with you, to ensure that we're recommending the right answers to that challenge. And there's so many different options there. So Pranav, I'm going to boomerang back to you too. So what excites you and what gives you optimism about human and machine collaboration, especially now that there's coding and development that can be done by machines too. How is that in your area? Scared of not having coding jobs? No. How are you kind of putting it together, and what is your view of the future?
So if you ask me, I am very much optimistic. I think I have with AI, I got my best friend who is helping me and helping me if with my every questions. If I am getting stuck in coding, it will help me. How can I solve it? If I need idea, it will help me to it will refine it, retune it. Everything AI is doing for me to make me the best version, the next version to of Pranav. So I feel we should not be fear about AI. We just be part of, make it as a friend, learn it, and use AI for almost wherever we can use it so that we can give the best.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I think that's great advice. And what about you, Stefan?
Jobs will change. I don't think AI will reduce jobs, but jobs will change. So for me, coding will move more and more towards AI. Prompt engineering was the shortest-lived job because in the meantime, I don't need it anymore. I can use AI to do it. But if you look at it, OpenAI opened their consulting business in July. And one of the new roles is the forward deployed engineer, because nobody can use OpenAI without expertise. And so consulting, what companies provide or what AI provides, means we embed people on customer sites to translate the technology to the base case, to the business case. And that is a role that will not go away, that will explode, because you always need that. You need the bridge between the technology and the business. And so say roles will change. Curiosity gets you definitely in the right direction. Be open for the change, learn. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. And guys, we are, I can't believe time has flown so quickly. That's what happens when you're having a good time. We have about 15 minutes left, so if you have any questions, send them along. It looks like we have one here in the chat as well, so I'll read that one out loud. With all the interconnectedness that agentic platforms and AI-enabled tools bring, do you think cybersecurity is going to have a big moment and our idea of a traditionally secure system is going to change? What a fabulous question. All right, Stefan, you have the emphatic nod. I'll let you start your answer on that one.
Absolutely. That is a future-proof career. Cybersecurity, the need will increase, because the more we go online, the more challenges we will see. We also see already initiatives where not all data needs to be in the cloud. I can keep data on my own systems. There's a lot of change happening, but data security is key.
And what about you, Pranav? Have we had to change a little bit about how we operate in general with some of the more cybersecurity concerns and open points that we've exposed?
Definitely, yes. And we do see this in most of the organizations, especially if I'm talking about from UiPath perspective, adding AI trust layer in between is the one of the step where we are making sure that the data point of view, the trust layer, so that these cyber securities are not an issues, especially using any open sources. So we have to restrict ourselves and use an enterprise solution which is foolproof, that yes, anything on that can be handled very smoothly on that part. So definitely a very good point, and most of the companies starting their talks from this, whether my data is secure or not. So this is the starting point, and then we start the conversation. Okay, this tool gives you that benefit. This tool is not capable enough. No, why you should use open source? Why not open source? And this is where the conversation starts.
Well,
but you don't only need cybersecurity. I mean, if you look at the big fire in South Korea where the data center burned, I mean, all government online systems run via the data center, and they were not online for another 30 days afterwards, and over 800 terabytes of data was lost because they didn't have the redundancy. So I think the setup in itself is important. You have to understand how can you survive if something happens, what happens if your data gets interrupted. And I think right now we put so much effort on speed that we sometimes forget the redundancy.
Absolutely. No, and 100%, you're speaking my language from my BlackBerry days, the redundancy, the cabinets of redundancy. There are so many things the company could have done differently, but that's one thing they got right was security. And, and what I was thinking about too, when you guys were both speaking, is that now that we have, we're trying to go so fast, it's time more than ever to kind of pause and think through, because if we change policy, right? What do vendors do? Vendors and AI move to the beat of what customers need, right? So if customers begin to demand, this is my AI policy, it must come with this trust layer, it must come with these, regulatory responsibilities. It must come with this governing oversight. Well, then guess what's going to happen? Our tools and our vendors and our everything is going to begin to elevate. So again, there is no wrong turn for anybody in this enterprise transformative ecosystem that will not benefit from the C-suite pausing to think through policy, AI optimization, initiatives that maybe were fragmented that should be pulled together in some sort of a steering committee. But this is the time to do it. It's budget season. We're going into deciding where all the money is going to be spent for 2026, especially at a time where we're trying to think through how to spend wisely. I think it's more important than ever to ensure that you partner yourself with someone, join webinars like this, get contact information with folks like these guys, and begin to understand that these are the things that we ultimately have to inform ourselves on, because it is here to stay. So as I pull up contact information for everybody to be able to join or connect with these guys after the fact, I want to ask the final question that we always ask all of our panelists on the Wonder webinars. And that is, what would you leave the audience with, one thing that you've learned this year, or that you've shared with us today, that you think that you'd love to leave everybody with? You guys have spouted some great nuggets too, so I'm putting you on the spot for one more. And Stefan, I'll start with you.
I would like to rephrase or repeat what I have said. Be curious and understand that it's a lifelong learning.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stefan. And you guys can connect with him on LinkedIn here. And Pranav, how about you? What would you leave everybody with?
I would say starts with why. Why are we using it? Starts with why. Is it necessary to implement? It's not like the hype is there, I have to be part of it. Start with why. Know your solution, whether it is making sense or not, and then start jumping into it.
That's fabulous. So don't do it for the sake of doing it. There has to be a why. I love that. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your time and attention. I appreciate it, and we will see everybody next month.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Paula. Bye.
Of
Bye, everyone.
course.